Just a second. Okay. So good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. We welcome both our panelists and participants from around the world on this very important topic of space and sustainability, space compacts to achieve the UN 2030 space agenda. My name is Upasana Dasgupta, and I'm a board member of Alliance for Collaboration in the Exploration of Space, SS Worldwide, and I have been heading the pilot project of Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement in South Asia, a project that was dominated by ACES Worldwide. Before we begin, I would like to thank Kim Degnan, partner at Advanced Technologies and board member of ACES Worldwide, who is the convener of this session. She has been working on organizing this session since February, and we would not have reached this point without her tireless efforts. So thank you, Kim. So our distinguished panel of experts from around the world will address how space can be instrumental in addressing the developmental needs on Earth, including meeting the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. Their full biographies are available in the online program. So Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement Initiative, it is a way to ensure that space infrastructure is used for meeting the developmental goals on Earth, including meeting the Space 2030 agenda. The pilot project at South Asia began in India when ACES Worldwide facilitated entering into 2 agreements on space and sustainability compact. So these are basically on how space applications can be helpful for fisherfolk community who engage in both fishing and aquaculture. The entities which are involved in this amazing work include Numerate, which is a private limited company in India, Indian Network on Ethics and Climate Change, a national network of organizations and individuals who connect on the issue of climate change from the perspective of marginalized communities. We also have some discussions with Nanritam, which is an NGO which does teleeducation and telehealth facilities in India, and we are planning to expand this to have a compact agreement. Before I move forward, I will have a short PowerPoint presentation on what a compact agreement looks like and what its key features are. If I may share the screen. So this is the presentation where we will talk about the Compact Agreement Initiative. Space, of course, we know that it is intricately related with our daily activities on Earth, like agriculture, health, education, communications, networking, navigation, transportation, saving the environment, weather, climate change, monitoring, and virtually all the 17 SDG goals. These are some examples of how outer space can contribute to Earth. For example, disaster management, cartographic purposes, study of surface of winds and ocean surface, then creation of land use maps, navigation, air traffic management, telemedicine. This is just some of those examples. So there are some more examples, like for example, concrete examples. For example, Pixel, which is India's first homegrown private commercial imaging satellite. It has been, the mission is planned to be a constellation that is designed to provide global coverage every 24 hours with the aim of detecting, monitoring, and predicting global phenomena such as agriculture and environment. And then we have India's Bhuvanidhi platform, which uses data from 44 satellites, and it gives information about how what things look like in past 24 hours or in past days and hours, and at varying zoom levels. Then we also have some examples from Bangladesh, where the seasonal monsoon plays a very important role in the productivity of crop. So accurate information is provided by World Meteorological Organization and Food and Agricultural Organization, which is critical for its productivity. And this data has been very helpful for increasing the productivity on in the country. Sorry. Then we also have the Bangabandhu 1. The recent Bangabandhu 1 satellite of Bangladesh has been very helpful for using using these facilities for telecommunications and for connecting during the pandemic. Then there are several more examples, and we could go on and on, but I would but just want to say that space applications can be very helpful on Earth and for developing the sustainable development goals and for making them, realizing them on Earth. So we have the Space 2030 agenda, a Space 2030 agenda which the UN General Assembly came up with. It basically says that space can be very useful for strengthening the role of the sustainable development on Earth. And that is something that was recognized by the UN General Assembly. And then we have the Space and Sustainability Compact agreements that we are coming up with, which basically tries to implement the Space 2030 agenda. These Space Compact agreements are very highly flexible agreements, which basically have agreement between a space user and a space provider. And that is a typical one. It can be customized. It can be a little different because the space user and provider can be same at some point. And a pilot program that was launched in South Asia. We are, as I said, we have started already in India, and we are trying to, at the moment, expand it to Sri Lanka and other 8 countries, and also in other countries around the world. So ACES Worldwide is trying to have something like a prize for this Space Compact Agreement, the best Space Compact Agreement, and that would be used for awarding them the Space Compacts, and there can be many of these. So, and we are also trying to involve UNUSA for these initiatives. So also, along with realizing the Space 2030 agenda, it also is realization of Article 1 of the Outer Space Treaty, which has about 112 member states, which basically says that space should be used for the benefit and the interest of all countries. And this is this can be realization of those objectives also. And it can also be a realization of the Space Benefits Declaration, which says that space infrastructure should be used in a mutually acceptable basis, an equitable and mutually acceptable basis for all. So we have found some 10 SDGs which can be very useful for compact agreements, but then there are others, like especially education, health, environment, but then there are other SDGs also which can be useful for being which can get affected by space applications. So some of the global fund that we are planning to have for Space for All would include the best nationally backed Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement, the best Space and Sustainability Agreement that addresses hunger, health, education, water, energy, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, effective community design or responsible consumption and production, and climate action to improve the atmosphere, life below water or land. So this project was, of course, a brainchild of ACES Worldwide, it came up from the idea of energy compacts, which deals with SDG 7. But energy compacts are generally declaration by one entity, whereas here collaboration is more important. So we have more than one entity, at least two entities being part of it. As I said, typically a space user and a space provider. And the agreement that is being entered into is a non-binding agreement, which provides some of the goals that is to be achieved in long term or short term. For example, the one that we entered into with Numeret and INEC has one of the goals as reducing juvenile fishing by 15% in 1 year. Then we know about SDGs. We have been talking about SDGs, but just a few words about it. The SDGs were adopted in 2015 by the UN General Assembly to be achieved by 2030. These are the socio-economic and environmental challenges that we face on Earth, which are to be achieved by 2030. And there are about 169 targets and 17 SDGs. We will look at these are the 17 SDGs, and as I said, whereas there are 10 of them which we identified can be better addressed by the space compacts, there are about all of them can be helpful, get help from space technology. So just to say what a compact agreement contains, it has the parties, of course, and then it has the contact information, because we think that it's very important to provide all the contact information in case anyone needs to contact them. And then the type of space systems that they would be using, and specific space application that they would be providing to the parties, the space users. Then it would also include the space, how the space technology would be used for getting the goals. For example, the future use and goals, as I said, for example, the juvenile fishing being reduced in Numeret compact agreement, for example. And then, of course, there are these signatures. There are about 10 points, and it takes about 30 minutes to maximum 1 hour to fill this. And as I said, this is an initiative by SS Worldwide. If you're not aware of SS Worldwide, then I would like to say that this is also one of the policy initiatives which deals with enhancing spacefaring capabilities and policies and increasing space safety and sustainability. These are some of the goals of SS Worldwide. And we are also trying to forge new partnerships to find innovative answers to urgent space challenges. So I already spoke about the South Asian pilot initiative. As SS initiative, we are not parties to these agreements, but we provide our legal and space systems expertise, and we are instrumental in helping the parties entering into these compact agreements. So this initiative, one of the things that it does is change the narrative. For example, there are some companies which are already doing work on sustainable development, but they are perhaps not aware of how much they are contributing. So we are trying to change the narrative and to make every one of us realize that how SDGs are important and how we can contribute to them, and thus have a same narrative in a global as well as local level. So one of the things that we are doing is trying to have a coalition for Space for All. So we would like to have partners and whoever is interested to be included in this initiative. So that's all. Thank you. I would stop sharing the screen, and now we would like to have start our discussion, which will be in several parts. we will deal with the initiatives pilot project, as I said, in South Asia. And in South Asia, the region has certain issues. For example, population explosion, migration to urban areas due to scarcity of rural infrastructure, frequent natural disaster, in addition to what we are facing due to COVID-19 and its after effects. So Dr. Ranjana Kaul, who is partner of Dua Associates, a law firm in India and recipient of IISL 2017 Distinguished Services Award for contributing to the development of national space law. She will be speaking on how this initiative can contribute to the overall effort in South Asia, particularly India, and the challenges and benefits of this initiative. Dr. Kaul, if you could please turn on your video.
I have done that, Upasna. I am on video.
Thank you. So my first question to you, Dr. Kaul, is how do you think this Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement can bring benefits to South Asia, and how can we expand the use of space systems in South Asia?
Well, thank you, Upasna, for inviting me, and good morning to all of you. Particularly want to start with congratulating the ACS and Dr. Pelton for this amazing initiative, which I think is very timely. Now, this compact agreement has great potential, as a matter of fact, to bring benefit to South Asia and to expand the use of space systems in our region. But I think this is true globally. In all of the regions that are, our colleagues from all parts of the world are here, and I think this compact agreement is certainly going to benefit us all. And the reason why I say that is because what you have just explained in your presentation, it can become a valuable database, and it ought to become an easily accessible information bridge between the provider and the user. The user in this case is government. And I'm glad you have also included NGOs, because they are the critical last mile deliverers to target beneficiaries on ground. So providers and users, so the providers, if you're thinking of Space Agenda 2030, you're thinking about the space segment. So space systems providers. And then you're thinking of satellite applications who will deliver, and mostly the focus is really communications and Earth observation, as you have mentioned already, Pixel and number 8 and so forth. Now, these service providers, the application service providers, may or may not also be space operators, satellite operators, right? So I really think that this is a wonderful thing that is sort of a two-in-one. You're going to be helping with advancing the Space Agenda 2030, and certainly the ground level delivery, the focus of which is SDG, which for all of our geographies that are here today is really truly critical. And recently the G20 has also endorsed the fact that this is a sort of global crisis situation. But to derive the full potential of the compact agreement, my suggestion to you is to consider obtaining, accreditation by the UN, and also to set up a registry for the compact agreement, perhaps at the USA, so that it builds a robust long-term mechanism which also inspires confidence in the participants and the users. That is my view that I think of it.
Thank you for your answer and for the insightful response. So the next question I have for you, Dr. Kaul, is do you see the potential for new space services in India and expanded private services in India, or will the government will continue to dominate, especially when the SDG goals are concerned? Could you please tell us about the efforts that are being made by private sector already towards the SDG goals through the space activities?
Many questions in one question. So let me go step by step. Firstly, I don't see it as a binary, government versus private and all that. The reason for that is that the commercial space sector, about which all of us are reading almost on daily basis, about the flights that they have, sort of successfully undertaken and so forth, The genesis of that was in 2012. The first private, that is a commercial company, was established in 2012. India's space program is over 51 years old. There is no competition in this early phase. Unlike in other advanced countries where, of course, there is competition. So we are nowhere near that point. But allow me to say that it's in fact at the moment a supportive engagement between government and the nascent emerging new space. So a little bit about India's space program. The space program was formally established in 1972 under the ISRO and the Department of Space. And India established a civil space program, the specific objective of which was socio-economic development for the overall economic development of the country. And so the focus has remained since there, even to date as we speak, as a socio-economic developmental agenda. It's publicly funded, of course. Now, as far as SDGs is concerned, back in the day, they simply called it, social welfare and agriculture and so forth. It was all disaggregated, different nomenclatures. But the sum and substance is the SDG. Historically, it has been extremely difficult, I will have to say this, for consistent delivery on ground. Most importantly, I think it has been the challenge of connectivity, the last mile connectivity. And, India is called a subcontinent, not for, reason that it's so vast, and that we still have large areas of our country that are underserved and unserved, even as we speak. Now, of course, the pandemic, which you also mentioned, showed the fault lines. The biggest problem was connectivity. But the response was very swift for the reason that you remember the ICT and the ITU effort. So India's IT sector is well known. I don't have to amplify. Bangalore and Hyderabad, Pune, Bombay are very well known. And the government immediately put in place various portals, which are internationally now acclaimed as, and think about 1.3, 0.7 billion population. Everybody was on it. Now, as far as the government space itself is concerned, the first 2 decades were spent in developing technology independence. So building orbit-class satellites, orbit-class launch vehicles, developing capability for delivering satellite applications, like I said, focus on communication and Earth observation. And you have yourself mentioned the Bhunidhi platform, which is the National Remote Sensing Center platform, which is available to all users, including non-government users. India has an Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, and we have a SBAS, the Gagan, which is the GPS-aided geo-augmentation system, which, because of the ionospheric disturbances over the Indian Ocean. So IRNS and Gagan itself, which are interoperable, are what we call NAVIC. Now, when you talk of private sector, I will distinguish private sector and commercial sector, and you will understand why I'm doing that. Now, private sector companies have been involved with India's space program since 1972 through the government procurement system. And what has happened is that the ISRO has worked extremely closely. There are about 650 private companies who are vendors of products and services. And out of that 650, about 150 are legacy engineering companies and big companies. India's space program is entirely indigenous. We build our own, manufacture our own launch vehicles, satellites, and everything else in between. Everything is manufactured in India, and it has happened since 72. So this entire ecosystem consists of highly skilled, framework of private companies, which are able to produce to very high specifications. In fact, I was inquiring from friends in ISRO, and they said that there's been only the one incident where there was a manufacturing defect. So in 51 years now, that seems like all right. Are they conscious of SDGs? Of course not. They know that, there's poverty, there is unemployment, we have to do something. I support this and I support that. But am I actively conscious of SDGs? No, I don't think so. Then, of course, you have the rise of the commercial. This is so moto. No government support, nothing. They just did it. I think the Mangalyaan and so forth was a matter of great excitement and aspiration. But in the recent years, in 2016, the government initiated the Startup India, not for any specific sector, but generically Startup India, and 2020, the space reforms. Now, this combination has been sort of created an energy of altogether a different nature. So the first generation, which I said, the first company was incorporated in 2012, that generation, Pixel is one of them, they are now almost commercial. Pixel has gone commercial, Dhruva has gone commercial, but Dhruva and others, which are now headed towards that direction, are building space system, space segment, so space agenda. And the others who have very well gone are space applications, so GIS and communications. So are they conscious of SDGs? Not actively. So I've decided to give you 3 examples, and the 3 examples for the reason that they are operating in the geographies represented here today, in Africa, in Latin America, and for, of course, South Asia, including India. So the first one is SatSearch. Now, SatSearch is a global marketplace for space industry. So what does that mean? Their core expertise is to help build supply chains for the space industry. And they are leveraging their experience to help emerging countries to build their space programs or to set up, the hardware that is required and so forth. They are SatSearch. I think, Upasana, you have met Narayan Prasad, NP. They're operating in 120 countries. And that's a phenomenal global reach. Did he know about SDGs? He said, yes, of course I know about SDG, but I'm an engineer, we're not interested. I said, what about Space 2030? Now that got him very interested. I said, actually, you're supporting that. So after 5 minutes of conversation, he said, you know what, I'll talk to my partner. So let's see whether it comes up on their website or not. So the next example is Astrom. Now, this is what I meant by cooperative sort of engagement between government and... So Astrom is in satellite telecommunications. And this young founder has developed proprietary technology for E-band millimeter wave, and I'm reading this, E-band millimeter wave wireless fiber technology for space, used on ground for solving internet delivery from space to rural and semi-urban areas with SpaceNet. SpaceNet, is a US company which is into VSAT. And they have only recently completed one government project where the funding was from the USO, the Universal Obligation Fund. That ITU mandates that. So telecommunications, where villages and populations and schools in the target area now have quality internet access and 4G services. India does not yet, has not enlarged itself to broadband, 5G broadband. So until then, it is going to be internet, 4G, IT, all that is going to, and I imagine countries similarly placed like India will have the same situation. Did she know about SDG? Of course she knew about SDG. She was very pleased that she had helped all these villages and schools and so forth. But does she have it on her website? She's never thought about it. So I have encouraged her in that direction. Hopefully she'll be in touch. Now, the only one who knew all about SDGs and also has it on his website, which says that their innovative geospatial solutions actually relate to SDG 14 to 17. I was completely impressed with the founder. But what he told me was that, which I just mentioned to you, that this energy between Startup India and space reforms, the 2 government initiatives. So this means, and because the push is coming right from the top leadership, every ministry, every department, everybody who's capable of getting very excited about this is, and what they're doing is that each ministry and so forth is issuing their own set of challenges relevant to what they are doing. So civil aviation. Now, Airports Authority of India is also India's air navigation service provider. So in 2020, they issued a challenge for an ATM. It was an ATM challenge. And what had to be done in the first phase was to demonstrate, again I'm reading, to demonstrate obstacle detection and terrain modeling using high-resolution satellite imagery, culminating in a full-fledged aeronautical data management platform. And what the young founder was saying is that, ma'am, I had no idea this platform which I had built and it was approved. It's called iNetra. I is in first person singular. Netra is I, so I see. Actually has transitioned India's existing ATM system from the manual paperbook environment to the digital and ICAO standards-based environment. And therefore, in so doing, India has become the 6th country in the world to transition from the existing aeronautical information service mechanism to the aeronautical information management as mandated by ICAO. Now, the second part of it, which is work still in progress, is to publish the IAM directly into the cockpit. And we'll then be able to derive the full benefit of the Gagan, which is over us for ATM. But already it is the Airports Authority of India is, of course, already using it for flight planning and airport management and so forth, which is almost in real time. So those are the nuances of private sector, commercial sector, and government. So clearly there is an awareness gap. There's a lot of work to be done there, Upasana. So I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much. This is very insightful and I think very helpful for our initiative. And thank you for the work that you have been doing for us of changing the narrative. We should, we would have technically moved to Dr. Hettiarachchi, but Dr. Onyusam has a certain obligation, so we will move to him first, if that's okay. Dr. Onyusam?
Hi.
Hello. So we, of course, we are talking about Africa here, and we would like you to give some enlightenment on that topic. So Dr. Temidayo Onyusam is founder and managing director of Space in Africa, the leading analytics and consulting company shaping the future of African space and satellite industry. Dr. Onyusam, my first question to you is that could you tell us about the state of affairs in African space and satellite industry, and whether the developments of space sector is different across the countries in Africa, or is it more homogeneous development across the continent?
Thank you very much. So currently, there are about 21 African countries that have some sort of space program. Of course, development is at different levels. You've got countries like Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, South Africa, and Nigeria that are like the bigger player. Their space program has been around for a little longer, and they've invested, the amounts in the development of their national space program. You have new entrants like Angola, Kenya, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, and Gabon that started their space program a couple of years ago, and a lot of them have also achieved incredible success. And then you've got new babies like Djibouti, Senegal, Uganda, Mauritius, Burkina Faso that are just, working on developing a national space program. And as of today, 15 of these countries have now launched at least one satellite. A national space budget of all African countries combined is currently between 400 million to 550 million annually. It has been fluctuating between this range, in the last couple of years, with about $20 billion in annual revenue across the various industry segments, including satellite communication, positioning and navigation, air observation, manufacturing, and all of that. We're also seeing a lot of cooperations, between these African countries and a lot of cooperations with other foreign governments. In the last 3 years alone, there has been 90 bilateral agreements with African countries on space program development. The African Space Agency is also now operational. We have one of the panelists who is from the African Union Commission who, can speak more on this. So in terms of the distribution of space development across the countries, we have some countries that are just you can categorize them in the space user segment. These are countries that are just making use of, space technology and space data for various applications. They don't necessarily have space program. There are some countries that are investing heavily in building space application infrastructures, as well as capacity development in geospatial applications. These countries are mostly trying to capitalize on space technologies for socioeconomic development. We have a few countries that are developing and acquiring satellites and even commercializing national satellite infrastructure like Angola, like Nigeria, Algeria, and Egypt. And then we've got countries that are now investing in developing, capacity to build satellite technologies locally. Egypt and South Africa are, countries within this area. And we also have, a lot of, we have a few countries also providing support for, foreign lunar missions and, global lunar missions, like what South Africa is doing, providing ground station infrastructural support for a couple of lunar missions. So we see the distribution of space development, across the countries in this manner.
Sorry, I was on.
I think you're still muted.
Okay. Thank you so much. So following up on your answer, my next question would be, could you please tell us about some more innovative ways to encourage the participation by African entities in this project, the Space and Sustainability Project? And for example, we are thinking of instituting prizes for African nations, for the governments, as well as private sector to participate in the Compact Agreement initiative. What do you think about these new innovative ways? And if you could tell us more about some more innovative ways, that will be great.
So the priorities of most space programs in Africa today is for socioeconomic development, and this fits perfectly well into how the Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement aim to address the planet's developmental needs and its alignment with the UN SDG goals. My recommendation would be to go through the Continental Space Program efforts, which is driven by the African Union Commission, because this provides a better coordinated effort in order to reach the different stakeholders in the industry ecosystem. So, for example, the baseline studies that was carried out by the African Union Commission a couple of years ago, as a precursor to the establishment of the African Space Agency, was very comprehensive, and it's mapped out all the stakeholders, across the entire across the entire sector, including, national agencies, government institutions, as well as the private players. So I think working with the African Union in a coordinated manner would be much beneficial, because through the African Union Commission, you can then reach out to all of these stakeholders. This would present a better result than trying to liaise with individual organizations or individual agencies. So I hope that Meshack will be able to speak more on, how we can work with the African Union to implement some of these efforts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your answers. I'm sure we will have more to discuss during the question answer session. We would we would move back to South Asia. Sorry for changing the order. So Dr. Hettiarachchi, would you please turn on your video? Yes. So we will have next have Dr. Lasantha Hettiarachchi, who is the principal and president partner of private civil law practice based in Sri Lanka. His area of practice and specialization include aviation, telecommunication, finance, and banking. He will talk about the possible expansion of the program, the pilot program of Compact Agreement to Sri Lanka. Dr. Hettiarachchi, my first question to you is that, could you please tell us about the state of development of space sector in Sri Lanka?
Thank you, Upasana. It's interesting to know that I get to speak after Dr. Ranjana Kaul, who gave a detailed explanation about the advancement and the immense amount of work that has been done in this sector in India, both in the commercial and private sector, and she made a distinction. Well, and she also particularly mentioned that India is referred to as a subcontinent, particularly because of its size. I will start at the point by comparing in proportion the size of Sri Lanka, which is also referred to as a teardrop in the Indian Ocean, geographically located immediately at the tip of South India. So comparison-wise, when so much was described about the advancement, the phenomenal work that had been done in the space applications, and some with awareness that they were pursuing SDG goals, whilst others were unaware. I must say, coming back to your question about how the state is involved in this endeavor, I must say, unfortunately, Sri Lanka has no formal program or initiative at state or national level other than ad hoc, piecemeal, maybe sometimes reactionary, and based on interactive government agents' involvement at different levels. But there's no central coordination and involvement of the state or national government in either pursuing space applications towards implementing sustainable development goals, or in the least pursuing a coordinated space program. So that said, when you look at a comparative sense, we have no think tank, or we have had no think tank in the model of ISRO in India, or a parallel which had generated the interest and interaction of the nascent space industry and the sector. So coming back to your question of state involvement, what initiatives the state has done, I would say it is imperative at this stage that the state government involves itself in creating a centralized advisory body or think tank to get the other relevant agencies which act on their own sometimes participating in regional and World Bank and various other initiatives, to bring them all together and also get the private sector to participate and encourage involvement of a wider segment of the public, and particularly the private sector, in space applications, and how to harness these benefits that are currently available. I see tremendous potential for us just being at the south of India and geographically close, and also having very close historical relations with India, the opportunity to collaborate on many fronts and also get the benefit of the advancements that have been achieved in this area by India. I also see that it's essential to have a clear roadmap of what the national objective should be in pursuit of achieving the SDGs, and in what sectors, particularly production, service, where the state should encourage and provide guidance by clearly formulating policies and a basis of regulating a framework and a structure. That said, we have the Arthur C. Clarke Center, which is designated as a national focal point for space technology applications in Sri Lanka. But I would say that particular center has largely pursued research and development in space and science and engineering. So there is a lot of work to be done to bring all these sectors together and to coordinate all their activities through a central government or national agency which provides guidance and a framework. And in doing so, I think it is crucial that, or the ACES compact agreements I see will be a great bridging tool and will facilitate or be a catalyst toward bringing all these sectors together, and also creating awareness how they could use this technical knowledge that is available in the compact agreements to easily make use of those facilities and move forward.
Thank you for that answer. So following up on that, you mentioned about Arthur C. Clarke Center. So you also served, I understand, in the advisory group that was convened by Ministry of Science and Technology and Arthur C. Clarke Center to formulate a national policy for Sri Lanka. So how important do you think national laws and policies for realizing space for all, and can space and sustainability compact agreements be helpful for this?
Thank you for that question, Upasana. I think that dovetails very well into my earlier explanation. Arthur C. Clarke Center, as I told you, is a national focal point for science and technology in space applications. And with its initiative and also with the involvement of the Ministry of Science and Technology, an informal meeting was convened of specialists in this sector in 2001, where the government at that point was interested in exploring the possibilities in this sector and also getting all the stakeholders together. But that was a very short-lived initiative, because with the change of government in 2001 and the minister who was pursuing this initiative actively ceased to be the minister, and that entire effort of getting a national policy or group to formulate policy died a natural death. So that was so again, what I wanted to say is, when you leave things to the state and when they are dependent on the vagaries of political will, it does not always bode well for the industries and particularly science and technology, where these opportunities are available and they have to be exploited without delay. So I think it is essential. On the flip side of the coin, either the private sector or various national agencies cannot by themselves pursue certain activities without the active collaboration or support of the government. So it is in that context that I keep, that I say that it's imperative for a national agency or a state agency, which is both acting in an advisory and also supervisory, regulatory supervisory capacity, to overlook the coordination of all these activities, where several other agencies which can pursue not only sustainable goals, but also pursue them and use space applications as a means to achieve these goals, can be coordinated effectively and efficiently. So again, we have used, as I mentioned, on a piecemeal basis from time to time, different initiatives where we have collaborated with countries like Nepal and Japan in launching nano satellites, and where Sri Lanka has been, well, I would say, use the word piggybacking on their technological advancements and taking benefits. And also the Arthur C. Clarke Center has been involved in agricultural drought monitoring, as a national hub for receiving and distribution of Earth observation data, GIS for modeling on dengue fever, and also monitoring of crops towards identifying the reasons of agricultural disease and various initiatives like that. But I don't see them being implemented at a national conscious level, other than being piecemeal initiatives, sometimes done under the auspices of the World Bank or some educational program where we participate in pilot programs, and they don't have a centric involvement of a national government or some body overseeing a coordinated effort. So come again, as I suggested in my answer to the first question, that we should have some agency overlooking at the very top, coordinating all these efforts, whilst the scientific community, the private sector, and other players all can bring their efforts and coordinate through that agency to both exploit available opportunities and also collaborate with our close neighbor India, which is making significant and tremendous advancement in this sector.
Thank you. Thank you. So we hear about need for a central approach and a coordination between different entities. We already, so we are done with the discussion on South Asia at the moment. We already had a discussion on Africa to some extent, but we have another person from Africa who would talk about Africa now. We have Mr. Mishak Nidiritu, who is Space Applications and Training Officer, African Union Commission. As a space technologist and engineer, he has strong conviction of integrating space technology to address the SDGs for socioeconomic development. So, Mr. Nidiritu, my first question to you is that could you please talk about the efforts that African Union Commission for SDG development through space applications, and whether you could tell us more about that? And I understand you have a PPT to answer those questions.
Thanks, Apsana, and I'm really thrilled by the line of speakers that you have. I've learned a lot in listening to the contributions. And thank you, Temidayo, once again for starting on the African space market. If you allow me, I can share some few slides just to walk you through what we've been doing at the African side regarding, the African space activities. I'm with the African Union Commission, which is a continental organization. In terms of space, we are acting as the coordination body to ensure that the space activities at the continental level are enhanced to derive maximum benefits. So what we've been doing, I will start with an introduction. As you know, the African Space Program, or most of the programs at the African Union level, are usually guided by a document called the AU Agenda 2063, which is a compass to all the aspirations that the continent wants to achieve by 2063. And then came the SDGs. So the document you see here on the screen is just a comparison of how the SDGs and the Agenda 2063 normally interact. There is a lot of borrowing from each other. And in fact, at some point, the African Agenda 2063 was considered as the African SDG chapter. But all in all is that we looking at the same goals, the same aspirations to achieve. But while the SDG scope is confined to socioeconomic and environmental dimension, we have Agenda 2063, which is in a broader scope. It covers all those, but also considers the African political, cultural, and other African priorities. And here we find that space contributes to almost all the 7 aspirations of the African Agenda 2063. So that's a clear motivation as to why space became a flagship program of the African Agenda 2063, as it is known today. And it will also benefit to highlight a few things on how far we are in terms of achieving the Agenda 2063, as well as some of the goals of the SDGs. So what you see here is a compilation of the measurement of the 7 aspirations of AU Agenda 2063, how far we have come. We are leveraging, I think the average is about 25% or 30% if you accumulate all of them, if you aggregate the 7 aspirations all together. But as you can see, for example, the aspiration number 6, which is the Africa whose development is people driven, it's already at the red zone, meaning that there is more that needs to be done at 39%, which would be 100% by 2063 or even earlier. Goals like aspiration 4, which is a peaceful and secure Africa, is still at the it's not at the desirable level right now, but we intend to make the continent secure. We intend to make the people have more peace in order to advance things, including technology, space technology, and more importantly, to improve the socioeconomic activities on the continent. And this one gives you more elaboration onto the traction of how far we are with the implementation of Agenda 2063. So broadly speaking, is that we are on the right track of achieving both the Agenda 2063 as well as the SDGs. But this is also on a country by country basis. We are talking about 55 countries on the African continent. And some of them are, of course, a little bit further than the others, but the goal of the African Union Commission is to ensure that no one is left behind and to try to improve the situations where it needs to be improved. And this is our daily work in terms of development. I will jump some few slides because of time and focus on one key area, which is Earth observation. It's an application or a domain in space. The African Space Program has been conceived. It is now led by the African Space Agency as the institution, but the African Space Program considers 4 main pillars or domains. Earth observation as the main one. Then we have satellite communication. Then we have navigation and positioning, and astronomy and space sciences, and many others that will come later. So let's just pick one of them, which is Earth observation. It's a widely known domain on the continent, which has contributed to the livelihood improvement of many communities. So importance of Earth observation to achieve the goals, whether it is Agenda 2063 or whether it is the Sustainable Development Goals. So EO is the most widely known domain, and of the 48 African satellites that have been launched, as Temidayo mentioned, 21 of them are in Earth observation. And this communicates, the demand and the need for Earth observation in integrating their services into the development, especially the socioeconomic development. This is due to high demand. As I said, EO is on the upward trend. It has grown significantly from 2021 onwards, and it contributes to a huge budget now. If you calculate it in terms of socioeconomic contribution, and I'm going to also do that in the next slide. The downstream data and product services, they are growing thanks to the integrated technologies such as cloud infrastructure, IoT, and among others. And all these technologies come to enhance the services that are needed for decision-making, policy shaping, or even socioeconomic development directly to the communities. Now, according to a 2017 report that was done by the World Economic Forum, as well as the Digital Earth Africa, the adoption of EO can contribute to a number of things, many goals of the SDGs and many other aspirations of the Agenda 2063. The value now stands at, if we exploit all the potentials of Earth observation, the impact is that, Africa has been quantified so far to be about $2 billion in terms of valuation. But if we improve a lot on that, EO data could lead to an extra $500 million in yearly sales or returns, along with new job opportunities and increased fiscal revenues. If we could utilize better data that come out of that, we could actually have a savings of 900 million extra in agricultural sector. We're talking of improving yield and improving the outputs of agriculture. And as you know, the continent is a huge basket for agricultural production. EO data could also cut down on illegal mining if we exploit it very well. And this leads to another almost $1 billion in terms of savings and revenues, and a lot coming from the reduced environmental damage and fiscal evasion. So as you can see, there is a huge value in terms of utilization of space services. So here's what we are doing. We have a program that we are working with the European Union. It's a collaboration called GMES in Africa. It has a long history, but GMES in Africa mainly stands for Global Monitoring of Environment and Security in Africa. And this is looking at social security as well as, economic security on the continent, which, it's a natural process that comes when you manage the natural processes or the natural resources very well. So we have an ecosystem of consortia. So we are working with over 120 African institutions, and these are national institutions or regional institutions. And we have divided them into consortia. So here you see a distribution of the consortia networks that we have. In the first phase, it was 12, but we have reduced to 8 of them just because of the management, from the management point of view, but the institutional networks remain the same. And we distribute them all across the continent. We have 5 main regions, and we ensure that all those regions are represented. So there are 2 main services that we are implementing. One is marine and coastal areas or natural resources on the coastal and marine resources. And if you see this picture on the screen right now, we divide them into thematics and then into applications. And those applications are the ones that usually derive the specific services that are needed at the regional level or at the country level. So we have themes like, monitoring and forecasting of oceanographic variables, and we under that we have monitoring and forecasting of physical parameters. We have fishing zone monitoring and protection. Our fishing ecosystem needs a lot of protection, either from illegal mining. There are a lot of cases about overfishing and exploitation of these resources that require us to be vigilant in terms of not only to feed our people, but to sustain the evolution of the fish. Aquaculture and ship monitoring, aquacultural site monitoring and protection. And the second theme is coastal area monitoring, which is, deals with vulnerability, it deals with ecosystem mapping and so on. Ship traffic monitoring and pollution. Again, we have had disasters or cases of oil spills in large quantities, like it happened some few years ago in Mauritius. And as a small island that depends on, the fishing ecosystem, if you have a huge case of oil spillage, then it will affect the marine ecosystem, and which is the main livelihood of these communities. Marine weather forecasting, mainly to take care of the fishermen who normally go with canoes that are not protected. And we have succeeded. We have a very good use case here where fishermen have been utilizing a service on their mobile phones. And this service comes from processing of Earth observation data and giving them 3 days ahead in terms of forecasting on their mobile phones, is that through USSD code or using mobile applications. And what we have seen is that we have a lot of savings. We have saved a lot of lives, and we have saved also a lot of resources through the canoes and all those small boats that are used for fishing in those areas. We have natural resources, water and natural resource applications. These are many. I may not go through all of them, but bottom line is that there are several services that are being produced here. We have pasture protection, we have wildfires mitigation, we have agricultural monitoring and yield forecasting. We are protecting our forests through there are applications that lead to services in natural habitat, land degradation monitoring, tropical forest monitoring and mapping, water and agroecological zonings, and as well as their protection and so on and so forth. And all these, leads to protection of resources, ensuring that the continent also derives the maximum benefit from those resources. The way we approach it is that it's a user-centric model, placing the user at the center of it, and then developing all the other pillars that are required around the user. It requires co-designing of services and co-development of those particular services. We have not succeeded fully in terms of co-design, but this is a work in progress, and we have learned a lot of lessons from especially in Europe, where they have some very good use cases for co-designing of EO services with the communities, with the users, so that we maximize the benefits. Quickly, in terms of data access, this is what we are doing. We are using satellites we are deriving data directly from satellites, and we have a very good use case here also, where Earth observation satellites send data to a communication satellite that now broadcasts this information, bypassing the challenges of internet bandwidth in some of the regions of the continent. And this has worked well in terms of data access. We have also created geoportals and many other platforms where these can be viewed, or many decision makers can access this information. In terms of training and capacity development, we have trained over 5,000. We have also done a lot of scholarships to enhance capacities, and we have a network of academia which now does, the capacity development as well as regular trainings. We have learned 1 or 2 lessons, and one of them in the training especially is that there is need for this triangular relationship among the academia, the private sector, and the public institutions. Initially, programs like this used to go directly to the public institutions, and they neglect the private sector and they neglect the academia. But then what you used to have then is just a service that lies on the shelves of those institutions without proper reach out to the end user community. But the public sector comes in and now synthesizes that information and produces services that can go last mile to the end users. And this is because they take advantage of the demand that is in end user community, and they try to tailor those services in order to derive their profits. Academia is very important in terms of skill set, training, capacity development. We call them like a factory of skill set that is needed in the industry. And I believe this is broader into the space ecosystem, not only to Earth observation. We have also learned that with this approach, there are a lot of emerging startups in EO that now want to contribute to the development of the services. We have also seen some challenges. There is still skill gap at some level. There is low access to funding for the startups, even with the proper business case. And this needs to be reviewed. We have been looking for ways on how to improve this particular issue so that the startup ecosystem is homegrown. Lack of proper partnership among the companies and so on and so forth. One that stood out is the need for PPPs. As we know, no space program can succeed by itself without proper support from the government, without the willingness of the private sector and all other key players to come on board. And I think this is where the compact agreements will really be helpful in terms of creating, this ecosystem of approaching not only the public sector, but also taking advantage of the different other players, including private sector, civil society, and so on and so forth. In conclusion, we need to take advantage of the available opportunities to do the following: to strengthen our downstream applications. There is still huge demand for downstream services. Not all the users are getting what they want, and there is need to close that gap. Strengthening the ground segment, we need also to ensure that data access is resolved through ground ecosystem. There are some places that, even with the or the solution that you can provide, the data access is still a problem. Developing the space segment is very important. So we are looking at both downstream and upstream space segment. Resourcing the space sector in Africa is very important. I hope I have tried to answer to your question, Upsana, but this is what we are doing to ensure that our space program is contributing to the socio-economic development and improvement of livelihoods for the community.
Thank you so much. You do answer the question. So we do hear about the need for partnerships between various entities, and this is exactly what we are trying to do in the Compact Agreement initiative. We next have our initiative that we want to expand to Latin America. So that's why we have Dr. Sergio Camacho, who is the regional center, who is in the Regional Center for Space Science and Technology Education, Secretary General for Latin America and the Caribbean, and is affiliated with the United Nations. So Dr. Camacho, could you please turn on your video if that's... Yes, sure.
Yes, thank you very much, Upsana, and I will now share my presentation.
And yes, could you please address in your presentation a few things, that is how the space sector has been contributing to a development in Latin America, and whether you think Space Compact Agreement can be helpful in Latin America?
Yes, I will try to do that with one presentation. So I will try to address both questions as soon as I do not see my presentation.
If you share your screen, we would be able to.
I hope that you can now see it.
Yes.
What I'm going to try to do is to give you an overview of what the history of the development in Latin America is regarding the use of space science and technology for economic and social development. This is trying to get rid of the there. This is something that has been going on in the Latin America and Korean community for more than 30 years, from the mid-'80s up to now. One of the things that just about every country in Latin America is aware of is that at national and international levels, space science and technology generate important economic and social benefits, and that Latin America and the Caribbean should not be left behind. Now, what this means, looking at these 30-some years, is that some countries like Brazil and Argentina have advanced considerably in their use of space, the development of their capabilities. They're actually satellite launchers. They do sophisticated work at international level, while other countries are mainly users of space science and technology. In that area, some are more able, more capable than others. So this part of countries in Latin America and the Caribbean not being left behind is still lagging. There's still a fair amount of work that needs to be done. One of the premises, second premise, and this essentially all countries agree, that bilateral and multilateral cooperation facilitate participation in space activities. So beginning in 1990, the region started having space conference, a series of space conference of the Americas. First one was in Costa Rica back in 1990. The second one was in Chile in 93. The third one was in Uruguay in 1996. And the fourth one, I'm going to extract some of the highlights of what has been coming out of the series of space conferences, was held in Cartagena de Indias, Colombia. The conferences end with a declaration of the participating governments. So it's negotiated at a government level. That declaration has many articles or paragraphs. And I've taken two that have formed the basis of continued development in regional cooperation. And that was the participating governments agreed on the importance of creating effective cooperation and coordination mechanisms in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they instructed the pro tempore secretariat to implement the adopted plan of action that came out of that conference. The pro tempore secretariat is the secretariat in charge of following up and following up on the decisions of the space conference and interfacing with the following government, the following host government, in the planning for the following space conference. So these 2 points here were among the most important that came out of the Space Conference of the Americans in Colombia. That was followed by the Space Conference in Ecuador. That's the name of the declaration. That was in 2006. And it highlighted the advantages and the need for creating effective cooperation and coordination mechanisms for the region aimed at promoting space activities in the American continent. That is, including Canada and the US, because it is a space conference of the Americas. American countries are then the members, but invitations are sent to European, African, and Asian countries as well to participate as observers. And they don't participate in the decision making, but they participate in the discussions, and they make presentations on possible cooperation that could take place. It depends on the entity making the presentation. Sometimes it's government, sometimes it would be agencies or institutes, space agencies, space-related institutions. And it proposed that each state consider the possibility of establishing a national space entity. There weren't that many space agencies in 2006. There are quite a few more now. And this was seen as a way of facilitating the eventual creation of a regional space agency, such as was established in Africa. It proposed that each country think about creating a space entity. This happened through the following years and did facilitate the establishment of something that's called the Agencia Latinoamericana y Caribeña del Espacio, ALCE. That's the acronym, which is now a reality. This is the Latin American and Caribbean Space Agency. This was very recently established in 2020. So that is an important mechanism for coordination and cooperation. Now, there are several countries that have recently established space agencies or commissions: Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Paraguay, Peru, and Venezuela. As I mentioned in the beginning, Brazil and Argentina have had their space entities, agencies. INPE was the lead agency in Brazil for many, many years before the creation of the Brazilian Space Agency. And INPE is more or less the counterpart to the equivalent, the comparator of ISRO in India. And now Brazil has a space agency as well, so regulates space in Brazil. So we have these new space bodies, agencies, commissions, and I believe that this background presents ACES and national and international space entities, including European, African, and Asian space agencies, the opportunity to establish a compact to assist ALCE members and other Latin American countries to build capacity in the following areas. I mentioned ALCE members and other Latin American countries because not all Latin American countries are members of the space agency, but they do have needs to develop space in various areas mostly directed at economic and social development. That's the driving force for using space in Latin America and the Caribbean. There is some amount of research and countries participating in the exploration of space being seen now as the lunar programs and the Mars programs. But the driving force in Latin America is to use space for economic and social development. One of the things that is needed, and this is a key area, I believe, is assistance and through bringing the experience of members of the Compact to develop national space policies that are in harmony with the outer space treaties. This facilitates cooperation. If two or more countries are going to cooperate, whether it's within the region or outside the region, with countries outside the region, their space policies cannot be in conflict. If they're in conflict in several points, there will not be a common ground, common interest to cooperate. One way of facilitating this harmony is for each country to develop their space policy so that it is not in conflict with the outer space treaties. Not everybody agrees to the 5 space treaties. There are reservations on some. But as long as the agreement on the policies regarding most of the content of the space treaty is common to countries that are trying to cooperate, the ground would be fertile and there would be common interests to cooperate. Now, these are the priority areas in the Latin America region. As I mentioned, these are mainly what is necessary for the well-being of the populations of each of the countries. Food security, drinking water, health and education services to rural areas. Countries in Latin America have large cities, but many small towns and villages. Adaptation to climate change. This affects many of these points there, areas are interrelated. Climate change affects practically all of the ones that are listed there. Protection of the environment. Reduction of the risk of natural and anthropological disasters. And in general, to implement the SDGs of the 2030 agenda. Which are these? I'm not going to address anyone specifically. Our colleague, Kinguan and colleague Temidayo Nyosun have already addressed what is being done in some of these areas and which of the technologies are best being used in the African region. Something similar would be the case for the Latin America and Caribbean world. And in general, the compact could be helping countries to support world goals and objectives that we have in the 2030 agenda that we've been talking about all morning, but the Paris Agreement on climate change and the actions that are contained in the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. These three instruments were developed simultaneously, and there was a lot of communication between governments, among governments, as these were being developed. So there isn't a conflict between what's called for, the actions that are called for in these documents. They complement each other, and in some cases are overlapping and duplicative. So I believe, in conclusion, that there is a very good opportunity for a compact to be established. I think the Latin American Space Agency would be a very good focal point to address some of the needs that, well, to identify the needs, what needs to be done specifically, and second, to coordinate the work that might be done. If I was to summarize the most important thing that is necessary, two things that are necessary. One is awareness of what can be done, and two is capacity building to do what needs to be done. And with that, thank you very much, Upsana.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is very helpful for us and to understand more about Latin America and what's happening. So next, we would move to more general topics and how to make Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement initiative more pervading and to get more outreach. One of the ways of this might be if this can be an ISU project. We have amongst us Dr. Pascal Ehrenfreund, who is the president of International Space University, chair of COSPAR, and past president of IAF. So, Dr. Ehrenfreund, I have a question for you regarding education and capacity building being the key for Space for All. And IUC students, they have come from all parts of the world, including the Global South. So many of your team projects have explored the use of space in developing countries and sustainable development and use of space applications. Could you please tell us more about ISU projects and how they are generally executed?
Yes, thank you very much, Upasana, also for inviting me into this panel. It's very interesting to hear about all the different regions in the world. And ISU, of course, the International Space University, encompasses all the different regions. It's the sole university worldwide which is devoted only, to space education, and that since 1987. And so we have this network around the world with a central campus, or where I am right now, also, although my background looks a bit different, but I'm in Strasbourg in France. And we have hubs in the United States, in the Asia Pacific region, and partnerships all over the world with leading space organizations. So we have, as you mentioned, many alumni from all over the world. We have, at the moment, a very active alumni network, from 5,600 alumni, which are coming from 112 different countries. And that's really something which is enriching the international space ecosystem. And many of them are leading personalities in the space industry, in governments, and space agencies. So, and we try to foster, this international space education that you also understand what's going on in the whole world with interdisciplinary activities in particular. So ISU is really, known as a signature to be interdisciplinary and to work intercultural and international. And one of the signature programs is always to work in a team. We call it team project. And we have that in practically all our programs, which are a little bit longer than 4 weeks. And these team projects allow students to develop really key qualification competencies for interdisciplinary teamwork, something which is really, really important right now. And there are about 20 students, and they come from all over the world, which are working in interdisciplinary and international teams and develop innovative and also multidisciplinary solutions to a space-related topic which is relevant, to what's going on right now in the global space community. And so we try to develop, the ability of students to work on a significant space-related problem in this so-called, we call it 3I environment: interdisciplinary, international, and intercultural. And I think through these interactions, also with our very large faculty of 160 members all over the world, students learn a lot. They write, they look at literature, they make reports, and have many different deliverables, and also go to conferences and speak about those kind of projects. So we teach them really to engage and to understand, space from all the different regions worldwide. So I want to say that we have heard a lot about emerging space ecosystem. We have also heard from Africa and how important it is actually to work in an ecosystem with governments, with industry, with academia, and to strive towards success in space together. And I think this is also something which is important, because the world moves towards commercialization in space, and there is really a pressing need to establish these emerging ecosystems, and educational activities are really a crucial element in supporting these kind of systems. And we need a really trained workforce for the space sector, and that can support future space applications, and of course also for sustainability. And we also know that the space sector is very much connected to all the other different sectors. So we need a workforce which understands this complexity. And I just want also to highlight, being also the past president of IAF and the current president of COSPAR, I also want to highlight the significant roles of international platforms, such as the IAF, the International Astronautical Federation, and COSPAR. So the International Astronautical Federation has a new platform, the Committee on Connecting Emerging Space Ecosystem, ACCESS. And that really involves strong participation of developing countries and emerging space ecosystems, and in order to produce really tangible benefits for these emerging space ecosystems. And we, for instance, because I heard Sergio talking before, and we have been in Quito in Ecuador last year with the IAF, and some people on the panel were there as well, in order to teach emerging space nations, how to build up a space ecosystem. And also in COSPAR, which was founded in 1958, which is more or less the largest and oldest international scientific society, we promote a lot of international cooperation, and we have regularly capacity building workshops all over the world. And alone this year, in 2023, we were in South Africa, we were in Chile, and we were in Korea already, in order to teach the next generation. So I just want to end by saying that this expanding space sector really necessitates a really highly skilled workforce all over the world. And when we look at the papers and studies, the space companies all over the world are on the lookout for proficient employees. So there's a tremendous demand for talent in science and engineering, and it will increase, annually due to demographic developments. And despite that, we have a really global shortfall for men and women in STEM fields, so in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. and of course, a particular shortage of women in science and engineering. So we really have to work on that. The space sector needs an influx of talent into the global space workforce. There are many studies with numbers. The numbers are in the hundreds, thousands in the next 10 years. And current employees, which are working right now, since the space sector expands so fast, really need continuously to upgrade their skills, and that makes all space education really paramount. And I think support for this endeavor must come from an interdisciplinary and entrepreneurial and also forward-thinking space education, because we need to develop, manufacture, and operate novel space technology and missions, secure services, and we have heard about many examples for climate change and disaster management and analyzing, data of satellites in the benefit and for to follow the sustainable development goals. So I think that's we really need space education. It's really important.
Thank you, thank you. So as you said, the space and sustainability are very important for very important for our world today. And so could you tell us more about the role that ISU can play? In particular, do you think that the space and sustainability in your master's program, can that be explored, and especially in your master and also in your Southern Hemisphere program? And could there be a team project on space and sustainability going forward? And perhaps you could also examine the effectiveness of the compact agreements as a part of the ISU research project.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, I think for everybody, all of us, the investment in space education that prepares the next generation for space sustainability is a must, because they will have to solve a lot of problems. And especially at ISU here, we always have been, at the forefront of interdisciplinary education. So we actually, in 2023, ISU launched a new accredited master program curriculum, and that's really tailored to the needs of the rapidly evolving space sector. And in particular, we also encourage entrepreneurship and support startups, and have a dedicated incubator, here at the Central Campus. And we need somehow really to support the new workforce in understanding international cooperation and responsible behavior when they are planning and executing space ventures. So when we look, we have heard a lot about Earth observations and data sets that from Earth observation satellites. They provide, of course, invaluable data for understanding and mitigating climate change. We have seen many examples today and how important it is. But when you look at it from the other side, while this is really, really important, it has also an environmental impact. And we have to balance this carbon footprint with the importance of the work of Earth observation per se and the data. And this is a challenge. We have seen in many fora and what is discussed that operators are well aware of their responsibilities and that they are taking measures. We have also seen that it is quite a complex framework to efficiently address space sustainability across the different space sectors and the supply chain. So we need, for instance, more research on life cycle analysis and the interconnection of the space sector and how space actors actually can agree, for instance, on decarbonization targets. So there are many details which we have to look at, and of course also future regulations and how we can tackle sustainability collectively as an ecosystem must be really an important effort in the next decade. So I just want to say that like every economic sector, space actors will be required to decrease their environmental footprint, in particular their CO2 emission, and over the coming years and decades. And you have to do much more research, we have, of course, high visible and highly polluted launches, which are questions in the community. And we have really to do more research in this subject. And so in this sense, we are actually working at the ISU in these team projects where we are trying to discuss, this life cycle assessment and looking at the decarbonization and interconnections within the space sector. That's, for instance, one topic which is really important. And when you look in the future, space is the frontier of technological innovation. And we have heard so many examples today how important it is for monitoring coastal regions, agriculture, and it will be more and more important and be a part of our daily life everywhere we come. And an important topic, of course, is also space data, which will contribute to the setting environmental, social, and governance, so the ESG standards. So I want to say that it's we are trying to implement, all these kind of topics in our curriculum. And we also try to really target and design projects which address, in particular, space sustainability and responsible behavior that applies also to space exploration, for instance, so that we are making the next generation really aware of what they are taking on and how they will grow the space sector, but hopefully responsible. I think that's really our everybody's important message and task to educate the next generation. We are trying to do right now. We are a little bit too late with a lot of the sustainability measures which we are taking, and we want that space continues to grow, and that has to be done responsible. So it is important for all organizations somehow to educate the students in the future workforce to act responsibly.
Thank you so much. That's very encouraging to hear the great work that is being done. Next, we have Dr. Peter Martinez, who is the Executive Director of Secure World Foundation. He is also known for chairing the working group on long-term sustainability of outer space. Dr. Peter, would you... Okay, Dr. Martinez, my first question to you is that we would like to know how you think we can move forward for a worldwide space for all effort by using various space services.
Thanks for the question, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this very interesting discussion. So I'll begin by noting that a worldwide space for all is an aspiration that has really been around since the earliest days of the space age, when the member states of the United Nations saw the immense potential of space for societal benefit, but also recognized the potential for space to be seen as a new high ground in military conflicts. And there was a conscious effort made to ensure that the former state of affairs would prevail rather than the latter. In 1958, shortly after the launching of Sputnik, the UN established an ad hoc committee on the peaceful uses of outer space with 18 members, which quickly became a standing committee in 1959 with 24 members. Since then, this Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, or COPUOS as it has come to be known, has grown to be one of the largest committees in the UN system and currently comprises 102 member states and 49 permanent observers. One of the first major achievements of COPUOS was the negotiation of the Outer Space Treaty in 1967. And the idea that space activities should benefit all nations, in other words, the idea of space for all, was captured in the very first sentence of Article 1 of the Outer Space Treaty, which says, and I quote, "The exploration and use of outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, shall be carried out for the benefit and in the interests of all countries, irrespective of their degree of economic or scientific development." And this notion of space for all was further articulated in the 1996 Space Benefits Declaration, which affirms that space activities should be conducted in accordance with international law for the benefit of all states, irrespective of their degree of economic, social, or scientific development. And that declaration further notes that particular account should be taken of the needs of developing countries, and that such cooperation should be on a equitable and mutually acceptable basis. Now, why is all of this relevant to our discussion here today? It's because space activities are intrinsically international by their very nature. So the UN system and UN entities like UN COPUOS and the ITU are essential platforms to realize this vision of space for all. And that doesn't mean to say that the UN must implement these activities, but that rather that it is an excellent platform for coordination among various initiatives to ensure that space is used in a rational and equitable manner. Now, if we unpack what the phrase space for all means, it comes down to the following elements. Firstly, we should recognize that the Earth's orbital space and the electromagnetic spectrum are limited natural resources that have to be used in a rational and equitable manner so that all nations can benefit from space activities. The second point is that states and the entities under their jurisdiction and or control should conduct their space activities with due regard to the corresponding interests of other states and other space users. This applies even if, or in the context of this panel, especially if, those other states do not have their own space systems, but instead rely on the space systems of other states. Now, this latter point is important to bear in mind as we are seeing an increase in the number of dual purpose and dual use space systems, which clouds the distinction between civilian and military space systems. This blurring of roles is especially dangerous in armed conflict situations, and it raises questions about the potential humanitarian impacts to non-combatant end users who rely on such systems should they become the targets of counter-space activities. The norms and rules governing the use of such systems are something that need to be developed and agreed upon by nations at the highest level to ensure that civilian use of space systems for peaceful purposes is not compromised by conflicts. In other words, so that space for all is assured. The last point I want to make about space for all is that the all in space for all does not only apply to our present generation, but also to future generations that will follow us. It's important to ensure that the space activities are conducted in a manner that ensures that the space environment is preserved for the use of future generations. This places a responsibility on all users of space, regardless of their level of technological development, to ensure that they conduct their space activities in a responsible manner. For the most developed spacefaring nations, this means supporting new actors to be responsible through information sharing and capacity building. And again, the UN system is an excellent platform to support capacity building.
Thank you so much. So following up on that question, there are many regional and other piecemeal efforts which are being made in the space sector, particularly for space and sustainability. How do you think we can integrate these various efforts and work in cooperation with the COPUOS, the UNOSA, and integrate all these efforts?
Yep, thank you for the question. So I would say regional cooperation initiatives are good because geographical regions often face similar challenges. Also, the countries in a given region are more or less on a par with each other as far as their level of development or of capability in space. And this means that each partner has a similar weight in a regional cooperation. Also, there are other practical benefits, such as being in a similar time zone or sharing the same language, for example. The UN is a great platform to support regional cooperation, and also regional initiatives can work in partnership with the UN to leverage access to additional expertise, capabilities, and resources. Since COPUOS is a committee, the main benefit of interaction with COPUOS is information sharing on activities and experiences related to national and regional programs to support the Sustainable Development Goals. And COPWITH is a great forum for states to engage and exchange ideas in this regard. The UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, or UNOOSA, can play a much more direct role in supporting individual member states and regional efforts to build their capacities to harness space for sustainable development. Indeed, UNOOSA has established a number of centers for basic space science and technology education affiliated to the UN around the world, and Sergio Camacho on this panel is the director of one such center in the Latin American and Caribbean region. And these centers have been established in each of the regions covered by the UN Economic Commission. So in other words, Africa, Asia and the Pacific, Europe, Latin America and the Caribbean, and Western Asia. And the centers offer training in remote sensing and GIS, meteorological satellite applications, satellite communications, and GNSS, and space and atmospheric sciences. These centers would be good institutions to partner with for the development of space applications in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. And this includes the compact agreements that we are discussing in this session. Through UNOOSA's partnerships with Earth observation data providers, it's also possible to access free, high-quality Earth observation data for countries by cooperation with USA, and this includes data from a variety of data providers. Also, one area where space provides direct and often critical support is in disaster management. The UN Office for Outer Space Affairs has established the SPIDER platform to provide support to states in the acute disaster phase. UN SPIDER has 2 field offices, one of them is in Bonn, the other in Beijing, and 23 regional support offices around the world to support disaster responders with space data. SPIDER also supports countries to build their capacity through technical advisory missions. With regards to a specific focus on the SDGs, all 17 of the Sustainable Development Goals are positively impacted by space to some extent or other, some much more than others, of course. This relation is nicely documented on the USA website called Space for SDGs, space and the numeral 4 SDGs, which describes the space contribution to the SDGs. However, the office acts as a convener and aggregator of capabilities and expertise. And at the end of the day, individuals and organizations around the world with those capabilities and expertise need to translate the potential of space into useful applications that serve and benefit people on the ground. This is where this series of compact agreements that Dr. Pelton spoke about will be so important. I'd like to end by saying that one possible way to work with USA might be to set up a register of these compact agreements listed under the relevant SDGs. This will help to document tangible actions being undertaken around the world to harness the space applications in support of the SDGs. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for unpacking the meaning of Space for All and how we could have more coordination and cooperation between various entities. Lastly, we have Dr. Joseph Pelton, who is the chairperson of the ISS Worldwide, and he is the Dean Emeritus of ISU and also a veteran in the space sector. Dr. Joseph Pelton, could you please turn on your video?
Try to.
Okay. Sorry. So Dr. Pelton, my first question to you is, could you please tell us about ISS Worldwide and how the idea of Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement germinated, and why do you think we need a registry for various Space Sustainability Compact Agreement initiative? I understand you are going to answer this through your presentation, so we can move to that.
Oh, there we go. Let's see. Can everyone hear me? First of all, I want to thank all of the speakers We have, I think, 5 members from our Global Advisory Committee who have spoken today, and particular thanks to them. I want to run through a few slides that sort of summarize the discussion today. So let's go to the next slide. So our mission is to promote space safety and sustainability and enhanced understanding of cosmic hazards and planetary defense, including space traffic management. And I will put in a brief commercial that we will have a session starting at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on this very subject following today's session. We are very much involved with space education, training, and capacity building, and support of improved space law, regulation, and policies. And of course, building our alliance, which we now have 8 members with a 9th in process. And we hope to build that of like-minded organizations to work on all of these initiatives. I will just also note, while we're talking about ACES, a member of our board from Latvia, Vid Beldas, he is very active working on sustainable energy in Africa, and he was particularly aware of the compact agreements that have been developed to be published about all of the sustainable development activities around the world, of which there are now scores published on a site managed by the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs. We have used that model based on VID's initiative, and we've started, of course, with the pilot project that Upasana has so competently done. So let's go to the next slide. Our objectives, thus, is to enhance the use of space systems to advance the UN sustainable goals. And the problem is the world is largely unaware of all of the various services listed here that space is so critical to. If we were to experience a day without satellite, the world unfortunately would find that we are really dependent on thousands of ways for space systems today. We also hope that compact agreements can serve as a document to increase the use of space systems around the world, and also create strategic planning documents as to how those uses can be expanded. Next slide. So we have a program of action. Our first step was to establish a board of directors, of which we have 8 members, including people from Latvia, from India, from Brazil, and from the United Kingdom. And we have also created a global advisory committee that includes 30 members, including 18 countries around the world, of which you have heard from 5 members today. Step 2, we have created a pilot project in South Asia, which Upasana has described, and we're beginning to engage new users. And in other words, in the past, compact agreements have been governments. We're trying to expand that to private and commercial space users, as well as non-governmental organizations, to get them all working in this direction. Step 3, we are currently in discussions with the African Union Space Agency, which we've heard from today, from the Secretary General of the UN Center for Space Systems and Technology Education in Latin America, which we've heard from today. And also we will be in contact with the Agency for Latin America and the Caribbean for Space that Dr. Camacho Lara referred to. And the idea is to create expanded pilot projects in these other parts of the Global South. But that's only the next step. Next step, next slide. Next slide for step 4. Here we are. We're hoping to work with the UN Office of Outer Space Affairs and the UN COPIUS to perfect this process. And this process would include first creating a suitable and mature compact agreement format, which everybody feels is sufficient to explain all the things we're trying to do. And then also to create an official registry, which several people have referred to. And it's our idea that the current space system solutions compendium, that's easy for someone to say, could afford an ideal mechanism to file these agreements. And we do think that Peter Martinez's idea that this could be set up so that the space uses for each one of the various sustainable development goals could be listed and see where they're sprouting up around the world. And of course, we hope that this not only records what is happening, but also inspire others to do the same. Step 5, next slide. So we want to expand the pilot programs that we've started or hope to start around the world, and also create a framework where national space agencies and governments could also promote this activity. And thus, it would expand from sort of 3 pilot projects to a truly global initiative with widespread institutional support, which involves governments, which involves space agencies, which involves non-governmental organizations, and private and commercial space entities. Step 6, the idea is that we might try to prime the pump, so to speak. The EU has this great program in cooperation with Africa. And again, our colleague in Latvia, Mr. Beldovs, has thought maybe we could go to the EU to get a grant to, if you will, reward the very best of the compact agreements that are developing and have developed in Africa, to create initiatives and also some competition to say who can have the best compact agreements around the world to use space to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Step 7, idea of working this as an educational tool, working with the International Space University and other universities around the world to create training to support the development of all these Sustainable Development Goals in space. Next slide. So the further thought that I have is looking at this not in terms of expanding the use of space, but also to create the thought that this could be a new tool, that in the 1960s and 70s, we had the COPIUS working with the General Assembly to create the Outer Space Treaty and 4 subsidiary agreements or conventions. But since that time, we've been able to make little progress to create universal treaties in this area. Instead, we've had much more reliance on so-called soft law. And this is the idea of sharing good practices, of transparency and confidence building measures. But we think that the compact agreements could be yet a new tool to, if you will, move forward the good and equitable use of space around the world, and to help achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So we hope that this could be an innovation in soft law around the world as well. So with that, I want to invite you to go to our website to understand better what we're trying to do, to learn more about us and the compact agreement effort, and that if you feel that you would like more information or would like to join us, we would welcome your engagement in this activity. So I would like to thank you, and I hope that we can go to some questions if we have some, and if not, I would like to thank all of the excellent speakers. I would like to invite all the speakers, if they could, to send to our convener, Kim Degnan, their presentations so we have them and perhaps can share them on our website. And if there are papers, perhaps Dr. Call may have a paper that she could share with us as well.
Speakers, please unmute your video and audio.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pelton, for the excellent presentation and for letting us know more about the initiative. And also thank you to all the speakers for joining us today and for your excellent presentations and comments and answering the questions. We would take questions now, and we could have questions from the panelists, could have questions for each other too. Kim, do we have?
We just got our first question from David Brody, one of our attendees, addressing mostly to Meshack, but welcomes any panelists' opinions on this question. Will space-based solar power satellites become a viable option for developing nations' sustainability energy needs?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, in my belief, yes. If you calculate the amount of need that clean energy that the Earth needs currently, and you do that comparison with the rise in terms of population density globally, it leads to very squeezed or constrained in terms of power production that is currently existing. So we definitely need a more robust process or new thinking of how to provide this power to all the people that will be inhabiting the Earth. And we look at it this way: the technology is figured out on how this can be done, but I think one of the limits is about the weight, the size, and how to improve the efficiencies of transportation of that energy. And I think scientists have been more curious in recent times to that they are producing new, for example, new solar panels or solar cells that are inorganic or organic. The technologies of wireless power transfer, they are not fully improved in terms of distance, but the inductions are still working. We have devices that are now charging wirelessly and so on, but improving that concept to the distance between space to Earth is it's a real concern. But we hope that with more focused energy or more focused research on this particular sector, and it will help to break down the pieces of technologies that are required. Wireless power transfer is one of them, yes, but also improvement on the solar cells, improvement on the the lightweight structures that need to be taken up to space to collect that energy. So I believe that it will be there, but it requires more effort.
Okay.
Kim, I would like to add.
Dr. Pelton, could we let Dr. Martinez answer and see if he has insight, because he has to leave?
Oh, please.
Thank you. No, I didn't particularly want to weigh in on this question, so happy to hand over the floor to Joe. I do have another commitment that I need to move over to at 1/4 the hour. So,
Dr. Martinez, I have a question. This is Kim Degnan, the convener. I have a question. I'm very interested in what both you and Dr. Pelton said about emulating the energy compacts that UNOSA that the UN administers. What would you see as the first step, or our ACES's next step, to move toward space and sustainability agreements, compact agreements registry?
So I would see it as engaging with the office to see if there is an interest and an appetite within the office to set up a register. It would seem to me that the existing platform on the office website that discusses the space contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals would seem like a natural place to provide those linkages. And it would start with a conversation with the incoming director of the office about this initiative.
Thank you so much. Dr. Pelton, did you want to address that question?
I agree. I think the Space Systems Solutions compendium is a very good place that for us to start the discussion. I've had some interaction with Ms. Mori, and we will follow there and to the new director. But to go back to the other question, we have a number of action agenda papers, and one of them is about the solar power satellite initiative. For many years, that's been considered uneconomic, but there is now a much lower cost space transportation as well as improved technology. And we will share with anyone who's interested that draft action agenda on that issue as to the viability and the possibilities of moving ahead with solar power satellites. This, of course, would be just an adjunct to solar power systems on the ground and terrestrial systems. But it is advantageous because it can be 24 hours a day, and it can distribute power around the world as it's needed to areas which maybe don't have good solar illumination. So it really is a good supplemental tool to ground-based solar power, wind power, hydroelectric power systems, and so on.
Thank
have,
you.
thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Please, Madam
Sorry.
Moderator.
Sorry, Kim, we have another question. So
I know. I was. So we have a question from Rajiv Gambhir, who represents the Satellite Industry or Satcom Industry Association. His question is the Partner to Connect program of the ITU, similar in nature, but with the focus here with the space compacts on satellite communications cooperation alone for LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS economies?
The short answer is yes, but I invite Raji to send a email to me at joepelton@verizon.net and to continue that discussion, because I think it could be a very productive discussion.
Sure. So unless there are more questions, I have a question which is very broad, but one of the things that happens in many countries now that the space budgets are decreasing in some countries, and also in many countries, space is looked as something that we should not be investing on by many. How do we in that scenario, given that scenario, how do we convince more people to be part of this initiative and explain them the importance of Space and Sustainability Compact Agreement? Maybe, yes. Yes.
This is Pascal. So I think it is extremely important to inform, in particular, governments and governmental bodies about the importance of space, and they are not aware how important space is for our daily life. Many people are not, and I think it really needs a lot of outreach What we have seen often in many of the working groups I'm involved in is short one-pagers, because politicians have very little time, where you make it very clear what the project, and trying to gain interest and trying to follow up and explain, in particular politicians and governance, how important that is. At the IF, we always have a meeting for members of parliaments, before the conference of the International Astronautical Congress, to educate people about the importance of space. And the same, I think, is also important for society. We have really to inform and to be available, with a lot of a lot of things work today with the younger generation over social media, of course, as you know. We need to reach society at large, in order to inform them and to teach them about the importance of space in their daily life, which they are not aware of. And I think only like this, with outreach, we can go really further.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other speaker who would like to add anything to that? Okay. We also have a question regarding ISU, and whether looking for an email or a page where the groups that you mentioned can be.
We have answered that already. Yeah, we have answered that already.
Okay.
In the chat. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, we don't have any more questions from the audience. Do we have any questions for each other? Okay. If not, I just want to have in one small addition and a question. It's basically that there's so much that we have heard about what could be done and the coordination. Maybe we could talk more about coordination between regions, as well as coordination with the regional level and the global level. Maybe we can see, maybe we could have Lasantha and Dr. Sergio could talk about it maybe a bit.
Thank you, Upasana. As I stressed, when you question me about Sri Lanka, being just next door to India, there's so much that we could benefit from, particularly by transfer of technology, transfer of knowledge, as well as collaborating with whatever efforts that are going on, and also dissemination of information, particularly as suggested by Professor Pascal, where the public becomes more aware of the opportunities and the application of this technology in your day-to-day life. So I think regional cooperation, as mentioned by one of the speakers, is also very useful, because the commonality of geographical region, time zones, and also languages, and mostly cultural similarities will help easier collaboration, and also to pursue more common goals collectively. And I think several small countries in South Asia, say the islands of Maldives, the archipelago of Maldives, Sri Lanka, then you take the smaller countries in South Asia like Nepal, Bhutan, all of these can significantly benefit from the large neighbor, India, and also our group there can collaborate in using, because we are all exposed to similar geographical patterns, similar we share an ocean, the Indian Ocean most. So there is so much that can be gained by cooperation in a regional sense.
I would just like to add some notes. I work very closely with Arthur C. Clarke. Playing table tennis with Arthur Clarke in Sri Lanka was one of the highlights of my life. But I was very much involved with setting up the center there at the University of Muratura. And they've done, some very interesting things like putting in traffic light synchronization to relieve the traffic jams in Colombo, and also installing surge protections against power outages and so on. But they have other potentials and regional cooperation. I think Japan gave a telescope to the center, and other countries in Asia, I think, through the center could offer additional assistance. But anyway, I'll be in touch. But I think that there are some things that could be done through the Clarke Center to expand what they're doing and improving the programs they have in space.
Thank you, Joe. And could Dr. Camacho comment on the question about the regional and the whole coordination process?
Yes, gladly. Cooperation and coordination is something desirable. It's something that we all agree is good. However, to put them into practice is very difficult. People don't agree to cooperate. When I say people, I mean those decision makers that are the ones that need to be convinced to bring two or more sides together. So work has to be done in setting an atmosphere where understanding what is it that we can achieve and in which areas and who. Cooperation does not need to involve all of us. Getting everybody to agree is almost impossible. However, getting a subgroup to agree on a subset of areas or topics in which we can cooperate is much easier. And it does not mean that one should exclude those that don't agree on that subset. There can be other subsets in which a different combination of actors agree to cooperate. And the same thing to coordinate. Whenever there is cooperation, there are many issues that are delicate, like what information are we going to exchange? Some of this information is of priority, and I don't want to share it at all. Or I don't want to share with certain countries. Or it may be it has commercial aspects. So agreeing on the elements is another area to work upon to promote cooperation. So these are big issues. Perhaps there could be groups, maybe under a compact, or maybe it's cross-cutting to compacts, that could work on some of these aspects. Not the entire spectrum of what one might set as all the points to be covered. but maybe rest. And to try, if it works, then to use that as, I guess, an example of roadmap that might be followed for other areas in cooperation and coordination, regional and international. Sometimes it's even needed nationally within a country. There are institutions that don't get along.
Right. Does anyone want to add anything else? Any last comments, questions? If not, I would like to thank everybody, the panelists, the convener, and the attendees for being here today. We have learned a lot from you and from each other, and I'm sure we would that would be very helpful for our initiative. So thank you so much. We would stop recording at the moment. Sorry.
I just want to say thank you to the conveners, to Joe, to yourself, to Kim, and others that are behind the scenes that made it possible to have this very interesting and hopefully productive panel.
Thank you so
Great
much.
to be appreciated. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to mirror the sentiments of Dr. Sergio. Thank you to all. Great initiative.
Thank you for the appreciation. Thank you.
And great to meet all of you.
Okay, sure.
Likewise.